They told us it was natural causes. Quiet, peaceful, nothing to see here. But what if everything you thought you knew about Malcolm Jamal Warner's sudden death was a lie? Just days before he passed, Malcolm was different. Friends said he seemed on edge, almost paranoid. He canceled interviews, ignored calls, and, most chilling of all, left behind a cryptic voice memo saying, "If anything happens to me, start with the contracts." Wait, what? Now leaked footage, hidden texts, and off-the-record whispers are painting a very different picture. One filled with betrayal, backstabbing, and a Hollywood silence that's starting to crumble. We're talking power players scrambling to hide their involvement, deleted social media posts, and one mysterious woman who claims she knows everything, but is too scared to talk. Fans are shocked, former co-stars are divided, and a quiet war is brewing behind the scenes. What was Malcolm trying to expose? And why did he die just days before a bombshell interview? This isn't just another tragic story from the industry. This might be the biggest cover-up Hollywood's seen in years. Stay with us, because the truth about Malcolm Jamal Warner's death is finally coming out, and it's going to change everything. When the news first broke that Malcolm Jamal Warner had passed away in his sleep, the headlines were almost too neat, too clean. Major outlets pushed a near-identical narrative, natural causes, peaceful end, surrounded by love. But something about it felt off. Not just to fans, but to those closest to Malcolm. People who had known his rhythms, his spirit, his sharpness. And it wasn't just the absence of warning signs. It was what came right before he died. 3 days earlier, Malcolm had walked off set during a live taping. No explanation, no argument. Just silence, a deep breath, and a glance toward the audience like he was carrying something far heavier than the lines in the script. He'd been working on a new project, a docu-series about the treatment of Black entertainers in Hollywood, and had told friends he was about to name names. Those were his exact words. "I'm tired of playing it safe. I'm saying everything, but now that series will never air." There's a voicemail. Recorded hours before his death. Never released publicly, but sources close to the family say it's haunting. He sounds nervous. Not panicked, but purposeful. He says he found something big. Mentions a production contract that was revised without his knowledge, and references an executive who threatened to cut funding unless Malcolm played nice. What does that even mean? And why was this voicemail deleted from his phone before the coroner arrived, only to reappear in a backup cloud months later? Questions like these wouldn't go away, and neither would the inconsistencies. A makeup artist from Malcolm's final shoot, who asked not to be named, later came forward. She claimed Malcolm had been unusually quiet in the chair that day, eyes locked on his reflection, repeating the phrase, "They think I don't know." When she asked who he meant, he didn't respond. But before leaving, he placed a USB drive in her hand and whispered, "Don't open this unless something happens to me." She opened it 2 days after the funeral. What was on that drive? Not everything is clear. Some of the files were corrupted, others were encrypted, but one folder, labeled simply Lions, contained clips from meetings, emails, and blurry screenshots of internal memos from a major media conglomerate. The kind that owns networks, studios, music labels. The kind with power. One file was particularly damning. It appeared to be a transcript of a Zoom call. In it, a group of unnamed executives discuss containment options for an unexpected PR liability. A few lines are redacted, but there's one that stops your heart. "We have to silence him before he triggers another Dave Chappelle moment." Wait, what? Is that what this was about? Was Malcolm becoming too vocal, too honest, too willing to pull back the curtain on Hollywood's glossy lie? His longtime friend and co-star Jennifer spoke out weeks later in a now-deleted Instagram. Liv. Tears streamed down her face as she said, "He told me he was scared. I laughed at him. I thought he was being dramatic. But now, I think he knew. I think they knew too." Things only escalated from there. Strangers started showing up at the home of Malcolm's cousin Derek, asking vague questions about missing property. His laptop vanished from his apartment, His assistant went offline for 5 straight days and refused to explain why. And one former producer claimed he was offered hush money, cash up front, to sign a non-disclosure agreement about Malcolm's final weeks. He didn't take it. Instead, he posted screenshots of the offer and tagged several major studios. Within hours, his account was suspended for violating terms of service. Everywhere you looked, pieces were vanishing, people going silent, narratives shifting. But the fans, they weren't buying it. Forums lit up. Conspiracy videos spread like wildfire. Hashtags demanding justice began trending on and off for weeks. And beneath the chaos, a chilling pattern emerged. Nearly every Black entertainer who had pushed against the system had faced some form of career sabotage. From Orlando to Monique, Cat Williams to even Chappelle himself, Malcolm had studied them all. Maybe too closely. One of the most viral clips came from a resurfaced podcast interview, recorded 2 years before Malcolm's death, where he said, "I know what happens when you say too much. They don't cancel you. They erase you, softly, professionally, respectfully. And if that doesn't work, then you just go away." Fans are still quoting that line. But what pushed him to speak out now? Why take the risk? Why now, after so many years of laying low? The answer might lie in a meeting he had just a week before everything unraveled. A close source from that meeting says Malcolm confronted a top-level network executive, face-to-face, in a private room. What they argued about is unclear, but surveillance. Footage later showed Malcolm storming out, visibly shaken, tossing his badge at the front desk. The footage was quickly scrubbed from internal servers, but not before a whistleblower leaked a single screenshot. Malcolm, frozen mid-shout, his face twisted in rage, eyes glassy with betrayal, and then the silence began. He canceled interviews, stopped responding to texts, turned off location sharing. His last tweet, now pinned by fans as a digital gravestone, simply read, "Truth has a price." No one could have predicted what would come next. The night before he died, neighbors reported seeing a black SUV parked outside his apartment building for over 5 hours. No plates, tinted windows. When asked, the building's doorman said the car left minutes after the paramedics were called. Coincidence? The autopsy listed no foul play, no substances. But it also didn't explain the marks on his wrists, or why his door was unlocked, or why his alarm system had been disabled manually, with no record of who entered. These aren't theories. They're facts. Documented, verified, unexplained. And yet, the official story hasn't changed. Not one word. As the days turned into weeks, those who had stayed silent began speaking up. A former agent, a retired showrunner, a friend from childhood. All of them, telling the same story in different words. Malcolm wasn't just preparing to expose the industry. He was about to name the ones who had silenced others before him. And someone didn't want that list to go public. What's more disturbing is that many believe this isn't over, because in one final twist, just before his death, Malcolm made a backup of everything. And he didn't just leave it in one place. According to his lawyer, there's more, and the countdown to its release may have already begun. They thought it was over. They thought deleting a few files, silencing a few friends, and crafting a clean story would be enough. But they forgot. Still, mirrors of the files had already spread. What they revealed sent shockwaves through the underground media scene. Emails between producers discussing managing Black narratives, internal memos suggesting certain actors were to be phased out quietly, and a list, yes, a literal list, titled Containment Risk 2023. At the top of that list, Malcolm Jamal Warner. But here's where it gets darker. One file showed surveillance images of Malcolm meeting with Cat Williams in a parking lot late at night. No captions, no audio, just grainy images of two men who looked both exhausted and electric. Fans believe this was when Malcolm shared his findings with Cat, someone who had also long warned the industry wasn't what it seemed. And then Cat vanished from public appearances for nearly 3 weeks. When he came back, his interviews were erratic, his tone more paranoid than ever. When asked about Malcolm, he just stared at the camera and said, "You ever seen a man try to bring down a kingdom with truth? I did. He almost made it too." Rumors exploded after that. Former co-stars of Malcolm started speaking in code on social media. Phrases like "the lion doesn't sleep" and "truth echoes louder than lies" began appearing in captions. One actress posted a throwback photo of her and Malcolm with the caption, "He knew. They hated that he knew." But it wasn't just celebs. Fans started noticing things too. Certain videos of Malcolm's interviews were being quietly removed or age-restricted. One particular video where he said, "Hollywood isn't a dream machine, it's a trap with glitter," was removed from 3 major platforms within 24 hours. And then the threats began. The gospel singer who received one of Malcolm's packages. Her church was vandalized. She was doxxed. Her niece went missing for 2 days before being found, shaken, but unharmed. Local authorities claimed it was unrelated, but insiders say she had already reached out to a journalist to share her copy of the files. After that, she went silent, deleted every account, moved. Meanwhile, Derek, Malcolm's cousin, began compiling all the data fans had dug up. He wasn't a tech guy, but he had one thing going for him: rage. Pure, undiluted rage that his cousin had died with questions left unanswered. He launched a website, a podcast, a war. "They want him forgotten," he said in his first episode, "but we're gonna make sure they remember." And people did remember. The numbers skyrocketed. Forums doubled in size. Alternative news channels aired segments dissecting Malcolm's last public statements. And through it all, one question burned hotter than any other. Was it a cover-up or something worse? One journalist, working under a pseudonym, claimed she obtained the coroner's preliminary report before it was sealed. And according to her, there was an inconsistency. The toxicology scan showed no drugs, but the blood analysis had a spike, anomalous compounds that shouldn't be there. She said the lab technician who processed the report was fired the next day, and here's the kicker. She wasn't the only one digging into the lab. A Reddit user, claiming to be a nurse from the same hospital, posted screenshots from the internal portal showing multiple unauthorized access attempts to Malcolm's records in the week following his death. Each login came from a location linked to an agency name redacted in the metadata. Fans quickly traced the IPs to a government-affiliated building in Los Angeles. What were they trying to erase, and why was so much effort being put into controlling a narrative no one fully believed to begin with? The more they tried to shut it down, the louder it got. And somewhere in that noise, something new emerged. A 5th drive. Not one of the originals Malcolm had mailed out. This one was anonymous. It showed up at a small podcast studio in Detroit. Just arrived in a plain envelope with no return address. Inside, a drive labeled "Parting Gift." On it, footage, Malcolm, alone. Speaking into a camera, he's in a hotel room, dated 1 day before he died. He looks tired, but clear, steady. His voice doesn't shake. He says, "If you're seeing this, it means they got to me. But they didn't stop me, because this truth isn't mine to own. It's yours now." He pauses. "I don't want revenge. I want exposure, because the machine thrives in silence. Let this be noise." And then the screen goes black. No one knows how that footage got out. No one knows who sent it. But the message? It was loud, and it was only the beginning. The video didn't just go viral, it detonated. Within hours of the footage hitting the net, hashtags erupted across every major platform. Chark They Can't Kill Truth, Should Malcolm's Last Message, Parting Gift, and the Ya Ayin, one that made every studio exec break into a sweat. Unexposed Hollywood. Celebrities who had never spoken out before started posting black squares with lion emojis. A subtle but clear tribute to Malcolm, who always described himself as quiet like a lion, but twice as dangerous. And then something strange happened. An email leak, completely unrelated to Malcolm's case on the surface, surfaced from a cloud storage breach tied to a now-defunct entertainment lobbying group. The files contained transcripts of closed-door meetings, some of which discussed containment strategies for high-risk legacy figures. One name was mentioned in redacted form, but metadata revealed the initials MJW. Some still tried to claim coincidence, but not everyone bought that. One former casting director, who asked to remain anonymous, shared a voice note with a podcaster who was covering the story daily. In it, she said, "You think this was random? Please." The moment he stopped playing along and started pushing back, they moved the countdown clock. Fans were now convinced, and that's when the studios struck back. Suddenly, every video tagged with their Malcolm's last message got flagged. Copyright, claims, community violations. Even harmless tributes were taken down with warnings like sensitive misinformation. One content creator said, "I posted a clip of his interview from 2016. Nothing scandalous. Next morning, account suspended. Email said repeated guideline violations. But I've never had one before." It was clear someone wanted silence. But Malcolm had planned for that too. A new wave of files emerged, this time through peer-to-peer torrent links and blockchain-stored metadata chains. Fans called it the Lion Chain. Within it were unreleased voice memos, annotated scripts, and scanned pages from what appeared to be Malcolm's private journal. And those pages painted a picture no one saw coming. Malcolm hadn't just been gathering dirt. He'd been writing a screenplay, but not fiction. This was his story. Names, dates, events. It was labeled The Golden Cage. And in it, he described his rise to fame, the way producers controlled image over integrity, how contracts were used as leashes, and most hauntingly, how certain stars were recycled when they stopped being useful. Recycled, not retired. Not faded, recycled. Fans didn't know what to make of it, until someone remembered an interview from years ago. Malcolm had said, "In this industry, when you stop being profitable, you either disappear or they reinvent you without your consent." People thought it was metaphorical. Now it felt like prophecy, and just when it felt like things couldn't spiral any further, they found the voicemail. Cat Williams, despite staying mostly quiet after his brief explosive comment, had left a voicemail for Malcolm just 2 days before his death. No one knew how it leaked. Some say Derek released it. Others think it was timed by Malcolm's dead man protocol. But the audio was chilling. "Look, man, I don't know who else to call. I know you said you had it covered, but I'm getting calls. Threats. My house was watched last night. I ain't no coward, but I ain't stupid either. If they're moving on you, they're moving on me next. Just be careful, King." That was it. No follow-up, no context. But that short clip confirmed everything fans feared. That Malcolm knew he was being watched. That Cat knew too. And most of all, that there were forces willing to go to extremes to make this go away. Meanwhile, Derek wasn't letting up. He hired private investigators, ex-cops, even some digital activists who specialized in recovering deleted data. And what they uncovered next flipped the entire narrative. The security footage. A low-res, glitchy video from the hotel where Malcolm spent. Malcolm's legacy was no longer just his work. It was the battle he'd died fighting. But the war wasn't over. At a private memorial organized by close friends and family, Derek took the mic. He wasn't emotional, he was furious, voice steady, eyes burning. They tried to erase him. They thought this would end with a funeral. They were wrong. This ends when the world knows exactly what happened, and we're not stopping until then. And the room, filled with people who knew Malcolm best, stood and applauded, not out of respect, out of revolution. Even former co-stars who had avoided the topic began speaking out. One posted, "I stayed quiet out of fear, but silence is complicity. Malcolm deserved better." Another wrote, "Hollywood didn't break him. It feared him. And for good reason." As more spoke, more cracks appeared in the studio walls. A junior executive from a top network emailed an independent journalist a single sentence, "You don't know the half of it." Attached was a list of internal incident codes. One stood out, M103RL. Fans decoded it as Malcolm, risk level, lethal. And with that, the pieces started falling into place. The leaked code, M103RL, did more than ignite suspicions. It became a rallying cry. T-shirts were printed, songs were recorded. A documentary in progress was retitled Risk Level, Lethal. But while fans were flooding timelines with hashtags and candle emojis, behind the scenes, Derek had made progress no one expected. He found the cleaner. Not the literal cleaner. This was Hollywood slang. The person brought in to sanitize a scene, erase evidence, and manage optics before the real press or police showed up. Every powerful studio had someone like that on retainer. Derek traced a payment, $42,000 wired to a shell account hours after Malcolm's death, to a crisis PR firm. The same firm used by at least 3 other celebrities who had mysteriously passed away under vague circumstances. He confronted the woman who signed off on the payment. Her name was Renee Aldridge. In her 40s, clean record. Worked for high-profile clients. Always kept a low profile. Derek showed up at her office under the guise of offering her new business. When he brought up Malcolm's name, she froze. "You think this is a game?" she said, not smiling. "You think you can throw his name around and not get burned?" Derek leaned in. "You were there. You cleaned it up. The hotel logs don't lie." She didn't answer right away. But her silence said everything. Eventually, she whispered, "They said it was a precaution. They said he had overdosed. But I've seen overdoses. This wasn't that. His eyes were open." Derek recorded the entire exchange. But before he could post it, her firm released a statement claiming she'd been fired months ago for unauthorized access to client files. And just like that, she vanished. No social media, no calls returned. Her apartment was cleared out. Neighbors said she left in the middle of the night. People were disappearing, and not just behind-the-scenes types. 2 small-time bloggers who'd gone viral after posting theories about Malcolm's death suddenly deleted their accounts. One posted a message before vanishing. "It's not worth it. They're not just rumors." Derek knew he needed backup, so he reached out to the one person who might still have enough power and enough guilt to help. Kashia Knight Pulliam. She and Malcolm had been close for years. Their time on The Cosby Show had bound them like family. They'd grown up together in front of millions. And though they'd had their differences later in life, she always said, he was like a brother. Annoying sometimes, but brilliant. She met Derek at a private cafe in Atlanta. He showed her the footage, the voice notes, the call logs, and the photos of Malcolm's hotel room. One in particular stood out. The mirror. Someone had wiped it partially clean, but the corner showed a faint, foggy outline. When Derek enhanced it, the message became clear. "You found the truth. Now tell it." Kashia covered her mouth. "That's his handwriting," she said quietly. "He always looped the Y like that." She promised to help, and help she did. Within 24 hours, she posted a 5-minute video